The moment that broke everything did not happen in private. It happened at my parents' dinner table, with plates still warm and my 8-year-old daughter looking up at her grandmother like she had asked the simplest question in the world. "What should I wear to your birthday party, Grandma?" My mother did not hesitate. "Oh, honey, that one is really just for adults." Then Ava looked across the table and saw Megan's 3 children smiling, already talking about the party like they belonged there. Nobody corrected my mother. Nobody said Ava had misunderstood. Nobody even looked surprised. In that one quiet second, my daughter understood she had been left out on purpose. I did not raise my voice. I just looked at my mother, then at my father, then at Megan. None of them looked shocked. That was the part that hit me hardest. This was normal to them. Tell me honestly, would that have felt normal to you? Ava's hand slid under the table and found mine. She held on so tightly that I could feel her fingers trembling. She did not cry. She did not ask another question. She just went still. That stillness told me more than tears could have. I had seen pieces of this for years. I just kept telling myself it was smaller than it was. I'm Emily Parker. I was 35 then, living in Austin, Texas, with my husband Daniel and our daughter Ava. Daniel was calm by nature. Ava was bright, gentle, and observant. I worked hard, stayed practical, and handled problems quietly. That was probably why my family got so used to leaning on me. My younger sister Megan had always been the favorite. That was not a dramatic family secret. It was just a fact that sat in every room with us. When we were kids, she got more patience, more excuses, more softness. When we became adults, that pattern never ended. It just changed shape. Megan had 3 children. I had 1. Somehow that became the explanation for everything. "She has so much on her plate," my mother would say. "You understand," Megan would say. And I usually did understand. Or acted like I did. That was how I ended up carrying more than anyone admitted I was carrying. For 5 years, I paid half of my parents' mortgage. Along with that, there were regular monthly expenses and extra transfers when something came up. I never announced it. I never used it against them. I just did it, because I was told I was the reliable one. Megan, meanwhile, was always treated like the one who needed understanding. So if my parents needed money, I covered the difference. If something had to be handled, I handled it. If there was a gap, I was expected to fill it. I should have paid attention sooner. Maybe you would have called it small. I couldn't anymore. The painful part is that the same pattern reached Ava before I let myself name it. At family gatherings, Megan's children were folded into everything automatically. They were the default grandchildren. Ava was included when it was convenient and forgotten when it wasn't. Sometimes it was subtle enough that other people could pretend it meant nothing. More than once, I caught Ava noticing. "Was I supposed to go too?" she asked me once after one family outing had somehow happened without her. "I don't know, sweetheart," I said. That answer still bothers me. Another time, my mother brought gifts for Megan's children and handed Ava something smaller, almost like an afterthought. Later that night, Ava asked, "Did Grandma forget what I like?" Children do not always have the words for exclusion, but they feel it. Daniel noticed it too. "That keeps happening," he told me one night. "I know," I said, "and it isn't random." I remember drying the same plate for too long because I did not want to answer him honestly. If I answered honestly, then I would have had to admit that Ava was not just being overlooked. She was being placed outside the circle. Maybe I was wrong then, but it never sat right with me. When my mother started planning a big birthday celebration for herself, everyone was expected to help. A joint account was set up for party expenses, and I put most of the money into it. It was simply assumed I would cover what was needed, just as I always had. 3 days before the party, we all had dinner at my parents' house to go over final details. My mother was talking about flowers. Megan was talking about outfits. My father was mostly quiet. Daniel stayed beside me, listening more than speaking. Ava sat close, eating slowly, trying to follow the conversation. Then she asked what she should wear. That was the question that stripped everything bare. My mother set down her fork and said, "Ava, this really isn't a children's event." Megan's oldest said, "But we're going." Nobody corrected that either. I looked at my mother and said, "If it's adults only, why are Megan's kids invited?" She barely blinked. "Well, that's different." "How?" "They're just part of the plan." Part of the plan. Those 4 words told me exactly where my daughter stood. At the end of the table, Ava lowered her eyes to her plate. She stopped eating. My father looked down too. Megan gave me that tight expression she always used when she wanted me to feel unreasonable. "Emily," she said, "don't make this bigger than it is." I turned to her. Bigger than telling my daughter she's the only grandchild who isn't welcome? It's not like that. But it was exactly like that. Daniel did not argue. He just pushed his chair back and stood beside me. That mattered. So did the look on Ava's face when she realized I was not going to explain this away. I wish I could say I was shocked. I wasn't. I was only done pretending not to see it, and that was just the beginning. The room stayed quiet for one long second after Megan said that. Plates clinked. My mother reached for her glass like we were discussing table settings, instead of my daughter being cut out in front of everyone. Ava still had not looked up. That changed everything. I leaned toward my mother and kept my voice even. "Say it clearly. Are you inviting Megan's children and excluding Ava?" My mother sighed. "Emily, please. It's an adult atmosphere." I glanced at Megan's 3 children. They were very much children. Daniel finally spoke. "Then the rule isn't the rule." My father cleared his throat, but he did not defend Ava. "Maybe you see it differently, but silence can say a lot." My mother set her napkin down. "This is my birthday. I should be able to decide what kind of event I want." "You can," I said. "But don't pretend this is about age." Megan crossed her arms. "Mom is not doing anything to Ava." I looked at her. "Then what exactly is she doing?" Megan did not answer that. She just said, "You always take things personally." There was nothing unclear about it. One child had asked what to wear. She had been told she was not invited. The other 3 were still going. Ava pushed her chair back quietly. "Can we go home?" she asked. I stood up at once. "Yes." My mother looked offended. "Emily, don't do this here." I put my hand on Ava's shoulder. "It was already done here." Daniel rose beside us without argument. As we walked to the door, my father finally said, "Maybe everyone should calm down." I stopped and looked back at him. "She's 8. He looked away. That still wasn't the worst part. The drive home was quiet at first. Ava sat in the back seat with both hands folded in her lap. Daniel kept his eyes on the road. I kept replaying my mother's face in my head, not because it was angry, but because it was casual. She had said it like it was reasonable. Then Ava spoke. "Does Grandma love them more than me? There are questions a mother never forgets." That was one of them. I turned to look at her. She was trying so hard to sound brave that it nearly broke me. "No," I said first, but I could not finish the lie. Daniel's hands tightened on the steering wheel. I took a breath and said, "What Grandma did was wrong. Very wrong. And none of this is your fault." Ava nodded once and turned her face toward the window. "Would you have ignored that?" At home, Ava went straight to her room. She did not cry. She just disappeared into that small, hurt silence children use when they are trying to handle pain without making trouble. I started taking off my earrings at the kitchen counter with more force than necessary. Daniel stood near the sink and waited until I looked at him. "You know what this is," he said. "Yes," I said. "It's not one dinner." "No." "It's been years." I sat down then, because suddenly I could feel all of it at once. The mortgage payments, the monthly transfers, the excuses, the overlooked holidays, the little omissions I had trained myself to swallow one by one. I kept thinking if I stayed calm, it would get better, I said. Daniel sat across from me. "Staying calm is not the problem." I looked toward Ava's room. She asked me if Grandma loves her less. He said nothing for a moment. Then he asked, "What answer did they leave you with?" That question stayed in the air between us. For the first time, it all lined up too clearly to ignore. Ava was not forgotten by accident. She was kept nearby enough to protect appearances and excluded whenever it mattered. And I had helped maintain that arrangement by continuing to show up, continuing to pay, continuing to smooth it over. Maybe I was supposed to stay quiet after that. I couldn't. The next morning, I did not wait for another conversation. I opened my banking app first. The recurring transfers to my parents were easy to find because I had set them up myself. Half the mortgage payment, monthly support, other standing expenses. One by one, I canceled all of them. Then I opened the party account. Most of the money there was mine. I transferred my portion back out. Not all the money, just mine. The same money everyone expected to keep using while my daughter was treated like she did not belong. I also locked the card connected to the party expenses. The card was just a piece of plastic until that moment. Then it became something else. Proof, boundary, consequence. I wish that had been the end of it. By noon, my phone started lighting up. First my mother, then Megan, then my father. I let them ring. I was not ready to hear anyone turn cruelty into a scheduling problem or a billing issue. I already knew what the calls would sound like. Not concern, not regret, just pressure dressed up as family. I looked at that locked card again before I set my phone face down. It had paid for flowers, food, and comfort for people who thought my daughter could be pushed aside without consequence. That was over now. Would you have unlocked it after that? Later, when Ava came into the kitchen, she looked smaller than usual in her school clothes. "Are you mad at me?" she asked. I put the phone down immediately. "No, sweetheart, never." "Because of yesterday?" I knelt in front of her. "Yesterday happened because adults made a bad choice. You did nothing wrong." She searched my face. "Really? Really?" That was the moment I knew there was no going back. Not to the payments, not to the excuses, not to the old version of peace that cost Ava. I could see that clearly now. Once I stopped answering the calls, the messages started. My mother wanted to know why the card was not working. Megan wanted to know why I was being dramatic. My father said we needed to talk before I made things worse. None of them asked how Ava was doing. That told me everything I needed to know. I listened to one voicemail from my mother because I thought, for one foolish second, maybe she had finally understood what she had done. Instead, she said, "Emily, this is humiliating. The vendors are asking questions. Not, how is Ava? Not, I'm sorry. Just, this is humiliating." I stood in the kitchen with my phone in my hand and felt something in me go very still. Once again, the real injury was not the point to them. The point was inconvenience. Tell me this much. After hearing that, was I supposed to feel guilty? Daniel came in while I was replaying it. "What did she say?" he asked. I looked at him. "Nothing about Ava." He nodded once. "Then don't answer." He was right, but I still had one thing left to do. I had already pulled my money from the party account. I had already ended the support. What I had not done yet was say it plainly. My family had spent years surviving on hints and assumptions. I was done with that, so I wrote a letter. I did not write it in anger. That mattered to me. I kept it simple. Excluding Ava while inviting Megan's children was not a misunderstanding. It was a deliberate choice. My mother had crossed a line by treating my daughter like an outsider and expecting my money at the same time. Daniel, Ava, and I would not attend the birthday celebration. We would be stepping back from contact. All financial support was over. No threats. No insults. Just the truth. I put the letter in a gift box with a birthday gift because I wanted there to be no confusion. We were not disappearing. We were answering. That box became the center of everything. I set it on the dining table before sealing it and looked at it for a moment. A wrapped gift, neat ribbon, quiet surface. From the outside, it still looked like peace. Inside was the first honest thing I had said to my family in years. When Ava came into the room, she looked at the box and then at me. "Is that for Grandma?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "Are we going to the party?" "No." "Because I'm not invited?" I sat so I could be level with her. "We are not going because what happened to you was wrong. I'm not taking you somewhere people can hurt you and call it normal. She looked down at the ribbon. I didn't mean to ruin it. You didn't ruin anything, I said. You told the truth without even trying to. Ava nodded slowly. She wanted to know if naming the hurt had caused the trouble. I needed her to understand the opposite. The trouble was already there. Maybe you would have handled it differently. I couldn't send her back into that. Later, Daniel read the letter before I sealed it. This is clear, he said. That's the point. He looked at me for a moment. Are you ready for what comes next? No, I said, but I'm done being afraid of it. The day of the party came, and I stayed home. I knew the gift would be opened there. I also knew my mother believed, even then, that I would blink first. Maybe she thought the card issue was temporary. Maybe she thought I would still rescue the day because that was what I had always done before. Instead, I spent the morning with Ava. We stayed close to home. Ava sat near me with a book, but every so often she looked at my phone when it buzzed. She was listening without pretending to listen. Then the call came. My mother's name filled the screen. I answered this time. How could you do this to me? She snapped. I looked at Ava, then walked into the next room. You opened the gift? I said. You embarrassed me in front of everyone. No, I said. You did that yourself. Her breathing sharpened. The vendors are standing here asking for payment. If Ava was not welcome at the party, I said, my money wasn't welcome either. She could not believe I had said it aloud. I could hear that in the silence. This is your mother, she said at last, and Ava is my daughter. That changed the balance for the first time. My mother tried guilt next. After everything we've done for you, I cut in. No, we are not doing that. I have paid half your mortgage for 5 years. I have covered monthly expenses. I funded most of this party. Do not talk to me like I abandoned you over nothing. She went quiet then. I thought that would be the call everyone remembered. It wasn't. A few hours later, I received a bill from the venue with my name on it. At first, I stared at it because it made no sense. Then the sense came all at once, and it was worse. Someone had attached my name to that responsibility as if my agreement could be assumed, just like everything else. I called immediately. This is Emily Parker, I said. I need to confirm that I did not sign or approve this. The venue representative checked the account. So you are disputing responsibility? The person asked. Yes, I did not authorize that. I kept my voice level, but my hand was cold around the phone. It was not just that they wanted my money, they still expected access to it. That was when the story stopped being about one party. It became about a role they thought I would never leave. At dinner that night, Daniel set his fork down and said, They still think this is negotiable. They think I'm bluffing, I said. He looked toward Ava, who was eating quietly. Then they haven't been hearing you. No, they had not, but they were about to. They came to my house 2 days later. Not one of them had called to apologize first. Not one of them had asked if Ava was all right. They showed up because they wanted something fixed, and in my family that had always meant me. I saw them through the front window before I opened the door. My mother in front, rigid with anger. My father behind her, already looking tired. Megan beside him, tense and offended. Ryan stood with them, silent. It looked less like a family conversation and more like pressure arranged on purpose. I stepped outside and pulled the door mostly closed behind me. Why are you here? I asked. My mother did not waste time. Because you need to stop this. That was her opening. Not, I'm sorry. Just a demand. I said, You can say what you came to say. She stared at me. You caused a scene at my birthday. You cut off payments without warning. The vendors were calling me in front of guests. I kept my hands at my sides. You excluded Ava without warning. Megan jumped in. Mom already told you it was not personal. I looked at her. It was personal to the only child left out. My father finally spoke. Emily, maybe this has gone far enough. No, I said. It went far enough when Ava had to ask if her grandmother loved her less. That landed. My father flinched. Megan looked away. My mother did not soften at all. Children hear more than adults think. That is why some damage never feels small. My mother crossed her arms. You are using Ava to punish us. That sentence told me I had been right all along. Even then, she saw Ava as leverage, not injury. I answered carefully. I am protecting Ava from people who think excluding her is acceptable. You are overreacting, Megan said. No, I said. I am reacting. Would you have trusted them after that? My mother took one step closer. You cannot just decide to stop helping when we have counted on you. There it was. Not grief, not regret, dependence. I asked, counted on me for what? She gave a short laugh. For the mortgage, for the support, for family responsibilities. You know exactly what. Yes, I said. I do. My voice stayed calm, but inside me everything had finally aligned. They had built their lives around the idea that I would continue, no matter how my daughter was treated. Megan shook her head. You only have one child. You know I have more to handle. I had heard that line in different forms for years. I said, having one child does not make my child less important. Ryan finally spoke then. No one said that. I turned to him. That is exactly what was said when Ava was the only grandchild not invited. He had no answer. My mother tried again, softer this time. You should understand. Families do not keep score like this. I almost laughed, but I was too tired. You have been keeping score for years. You just liked the totals when they favored you. Silence. Then my father said, Your mother did not mean to hurt Ava. I looked at him and asked the question he had been avoiding since the dinner. When Ava asked what to wear, did you think she was invited? He said nothing. Did you know Megan's children were invited? Still nothing. That means you knew. His face changed then, not into courage, but into discomfort finally made visible. My mother's voice rose again. This is still my birthday we are talking about. No, I said. This stopped being about your birthday the moment you singled out my daughter. Behind me, I heard the door open a few inches. Daniel did not come outside, but I knew he was there. Steady, watching. Megan exhaled sharply. So what now? You just throw everyone away? I answered her without hesitation. No, I stopped letting everyone use me. That was the second moment I remember, like a still frame. My mother on my front step, my father looking nowhere, Megan angry because the old system had broken, Ryan silent, Daniel just inside the doorway, and me finally saying the thing I should have said years earlier. My mother pointed toward the house. You are teaching Ava to divide this family. I said, no. I am teaching Ava that love without respect is not love. Megan rolled her eyes. You always think you're the victim. I paid half the mortgage for 5 years, I said. I funded most of the party. I covered monthly expenses. And while I did that, all of you acted like Ava should be grateful for whatever scraps of inclusion she got. So no, Megan, I know I have been used. Nobody denied it. Instead, my mother said, we need time to fix this. You had years, I said. Then she changed tactics one last time. Fine. Then at least keep the financial help going until things settle down. That was the real reason for the visit. Not remorse, not repair, cash flow. No, I said. Just that. One word. My mother stared at me like she had never heard it from me before. No, she repeated. No, I said again. You do not get to treat Ava like an extra child when it suits you, and treat me like the family wallet all the time. My father rubbed his forehead. Megan muttered something under her breath. Ryan looked at the driveway. My mother's face hardened in a way I recognized from childhood. Then she turned and walked away. The others followed. No apology, no promise, no real acknowledgement of what they had done. When the car pulled off, I stood on the porch for another few seconds before going back inside. Ava was in the hallway. She had heard enough to know it was serious. Was that because of me? She asked. I knelt in front of her immediately. No. This is because adults made wrong choices and expected me to accept them. Her eyes searched mine. Are you sure? I am sure. She leaned into me then, not crying, just letting herself be held. In that moment, I knew something had changed for good. They were no longer controlling me. The The house felt strange after that visit, but not in the way I expected. I thought there would be guilt hanging in every room, or panic, or the urge to undo what I had done just to make the noise stop. Instead, there was relief. Not all at once. It came in layers. The phone rang less. The pressure eased. Meals felt normal again. Ava laughed more without checking the room first. Daniel and I stopped having the same tense conversation every night. That surprised me. The first few weeks were not easy. My mother left angry messages. Megan sent texts that made me sound cruel and ungrateful. My father tried softer language, but the message underneath stayed the same. Smooth this over, restore the old structure, act like none of it meant what it meant. I did not respond. That silence was not passive. It was a decision. At the start of it, Ava still looked worried whenever my phone buzzed. "Do I have to see Grandma?" she asked one afternoon. "No," I said. "Ever? You do not have to be around people who make you feel unwanted." She sat with that for a moment. "Even family?" "Especially family," I said. "If you had been in my place, would you have opened that door again?" 6 months passed, and the answer became easier to live with. Ava changed first. That was how I knew I had done the right thing. She became lighter. She talked more at dinner. She stopped going quiet whenever relatives were mentioned. She looked like a child again, instead of a child bracing for disappointment. One Saturday morning, Daniel and I were making breakfast when Ava came into the kitchen humming to herself. I stopped what I was doing just to listen. It had been a long time since I had heard that from her without strain behind it. Daniel noticed too. "She seems better," he said softly. "She is better," I said. He nodded. "So are you." Without the constant financial drain, our own home felt steadier. For years, I had been sending money out as if my family's needs automatically outranked my own. Once that stopped, there was room again. And the truth was, my parents managed. That mattered more than I expected. For years, I had been made to feel as though everything would collapse if I stopped carrying it. It didn't. Their lives changed, but they did not fall apart. That was hard to accept, because it meant my sacrifice had never been as necessary as they claimed. I heard things through other people. My parents had to scale back. My mother took on extra work. Megan went to work too. Their lives became smaller, yes, but they continued. That proved something I had suspected for a long time. They had needed my money less than they had needed my willingness to give it. That realization was bitter. It was also freeing. I still thought about the birthday gift sometimes. That box. That letter. The card that stopped working the same day my mother opened it. For years, money had covered things, words never fixed. The day that card failed was the day the truth finally became more expensive than pretending. That image never left me. A year later, Megan called. I almost did not answer, but I did. Her voice sounded different right away. Less sharp, less certain. Then she said, "I think I understand now." I stayed quiet, she went on. "I didn't realize how much you were carrying." "Not really." I let her finish. "You were doing too much," she said. "And what happened with Ava was wrong." There it was. Simple. Late. But real enough that I believed she meant it. I asked, "What changed?" A small pause. "Everything changed when you stopped fixing it." That answer made more sense than anything else she could have said. Megan did not ask me to come back to family dinners. She did not push me to restart contact with our parents. Maybe she already knew the answer. She said, "I should have said something that night." "Yes," I said. "I'm sorry." I believed she was. I also knew sorry was not the same thing as trust. Some doors can open again after honesty. Some should stay closed, even when the truth finally arrives. After we ended the call, Daniel asked, "How was it?" "Honest," I said. "Does that change anything?" I thought about Ava, about the dinner table, about the drive home, about the question no child should have to ask, about my mother's anger over vendors and bills before she ever showed concern for my daughter. Then I said, "Not enough." And it didn't. I never went back to the old arrangement. I never restarted the financial support. I never taught Ava that access to her depends on pretending the harm was smaller than it was. That was the real ending. Not the fight, not the letter, not the phone calls. The ending was quieter. It was Ava laughing at the breakfast table without caution in her eyes. It was Daniel sleeping better. It was my own bank account no longer tied to guilt. It was understanding that my family had called me dependable when what they really meant was useful. And it was knowing I had finally done the one thing I should have done much sooner. I protected my daughter. A year after the party, the family looked different. Smaller, more honest, less crowded with obligation. The old version of peace was gone. It was never peace for Ava. Sometimes I still hear my mother's voice from that dinner. They're just part of the plan. She was right about one thing. There had been a plan. It just was not mine anymore. And once I saw it clearly, I ended it. That was enough. More than enough for me. More than enough for Ava. More than enough to leave the old lie behind forever.